Richard, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Spring has finally sprung, I think, for good here.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
That is very exciting. I am good. Today, I think we're going to talk about storytelling, which is so fun. So,
It
what's
is.
on your mind about storytelling?
Well, a quote that I always go back to about storytelling comes from the late legendary executive producer of 60 Minutes. His name was Don Hewitt. And he said, the foremost powerful words in the English language are tell me a story, right? And so it goes back to when we were all kids and we had our parents read bedtime stories to us. It goes back to when we were kids, we would tell stories to each other on the playground. And it's really important, I think, especially now, to understand what stories we are telling about ourselves and if we are actually living our own stories, our own narratives now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have this doubly interesting perspective coming from the world of journalism and now working with individuals who are in a transition point, specifically related to their careers. And thinking about that idea of the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves really shape how we take action and how we see the world and how we move through the world. So when you're working with clients, how do you work on that storytelling? And do you start with individuals telling you their story? Or can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I do have a mix. People do tell me their stories. They tell me what's happening in their lives, what they've done in their lives. And you start to understand and figure out how much of that narrative actually shapes who they are and how much of that story has become them as opposed to what else is going on in their lives that might be part of the story as well, but they don't tap into or they're scared to tap into. I've come across people who have been in the journalism business for a while and they have other avenues and other arenas that they want to explore, but they haven't necessarily given themselves the internal permission to pursue those avenues and to try to tell a different chapter in their story. And so we talk basically through that. And throughout our sessions, you can see the light bulb coming on and them saying, wait a minute, I've been thinking about this thing for a while now. Why don't I pursue it? Why don't I go after it? And, we all have circumstances in our lives that sort of prevent us or slow us down, actual obstacles, actual life circumstances. But that doesn't mean that we can't investigate those those threads that we've been thinking about over the years and to help them start thinking about another chapter in their lives so they can have a fuller, more complete story about themselves as they go along.
Yeah. A couple thoughts there. I mean, I think that oftentimes we think of storytelling in the context of our lives as narrative when it actually becomes instruction. So when someone
Yes.
is thinking about, I'm just not good at this, right? Like, I'm just bad at finishing things, you start to create this hesitation and then you stop and then you confirmed the narrative. You've confirmed that story that you're telling about yourself. In shifting that story, you're shifting your mindset. So, like you said, like, let's take a step back and look at all the different things and
Mhm.
let's look at what you're selecting out of this story for yourself. And maybe writing a story, you're writing the ending for yourself before you've even tried. I think that's
Exactly.
a really big piece of this. I think the other
Mhm.
thing, too, in storytelling, as we know it, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in our lives, we don't know
Mhm.
what that end is going to be. We're
Don't know.
constantly writing the story.
Right. It's kind of scary, but it's like in the middle of it, those middle chapters, there's a certain amount of freedom there that we can write those middle chapters the way that we want. sort of and unhooking ourselves from the narratives that we've had to tell ourselves in our teens, in our 20s, and in our 30s. And we can write totally different chapters that maybe we didn't even see. I've had clients who have told me about the things that they've wanted to do. And sometimes it feels like it's the first time that they're actually saying that to somebody. And it can be astonishing for them to tell that to somebody for the first time. And so it gives them the ability to take another look at their lives and see how those chapters can play out in a different way.
Yeah. What I think is really interesting about this conversation is oftentimes we are given a script that we start to just read and live out versus
Mhm.
write. And I think when you're working with your clients, I love that you do that and you're telling this story. These sometimes we reaffirm that script that has been given to us, right? And so
Yes.
I'll just speak from my perspective of
Mhm.
like growing up, there was this script of like, you become a mother, you get married, you go to college. Like there were all these things that were sort of laid out in front of you. It's like instead of writing your story, you're checking off the boxes or you're just reading a script that has been given to you. And I think so many times in our lives, we don't stop to think, am I creating this story? Is this a story that I'm reading? Am I just reaffirming this? And how do you help someone discover that for themselves, right? Like, how do you help someone and guide someone like, hey, did you write this? Was this written
Mhm.
for you? Like, do you like this story?
Exactly. And sometimes what happens is, you know, the script the script is in front of you and you're checking off all the boxes, and then life starts to happen. You know, children start getting into the picture, and then you know,
Relationships. Yeah,
relationships,
yeah,
divorces,
yep.
layoffs, parents becoming ill, and then the script stops working.
Hmm.
And then you start figuring out, like, okay, what is working? If life has blown apart for you and you're trying to find a piece of the boat to hang on to, let's find a piece of the boat first
Hmm.
where you hang on to, and then try to start piecing together a raft
Yeah.
so you can continue on your journey. And sometimes those pieces are long suppressed ideas, like somebody who's been in a hard charging sales position for a long time and starting not to work. Maybe they're going, okay, I think I need to do something different. And I've always had the idea of just starting a coffee shop.
Hmm.
Okay. And all right, so let's investigate. Why do you want to? What is it about coffee that you love so much? And what is it about running a store that is appealing to you? So we keep asking questions about that. And you start digging in and we start asking, okay, what does that particular thing mean to you? And then you ask it again. And then you get to the real root of what's happening. And that is like the real rich soil that we can start planting new trees in.
Yeah. I
New
love that.
garden.
It's like the plot twist is the awareness, right? Like,
Yeah,
and the cool thing is too that you get to decide. Like, you're
yeah,
the hero of your journey. You get to decide this.
absolutely,
I think it's
absolutely.
also cool, like that idea about a coffee shop. And I was just working with a client on this earlier
Mhm.
today, actually. We were doing this Venn diagram of like, what lights you up and what do you see as your talents? And then sort of that middle is like, what can you do with that? And that would like the world needs. And so sort of a pared down ikigai activity that we did. Some of the ideas that they came up with was like so exciting, right? It was like, oh, I love to work with my hands and I love to create art. And here are the talents that I have with that. And here are things that I've seen that I want to do and that I see a need for. And it's so different from what they were doing before. And I said, don't worry about the how. Like the how will take care of itself. Let's just
Exactly.
like focus on that idea of that awareness. Like you said, like, hey, I've always wanted to run a coffee shop. Well, okay, tell me more about that.
And something else as well is giving that person the permission to dream,
Yeah.
to say, and I think this is one of the great things that we do as coaches is we give people that safe space to say, okay, I want to find something where I work with my hands, or I
Mhm.
want to find something, you know, find a coffee shop that I can run. And what we do is we help give our clients permission to dream and to think about these things that they may not have otherwise. And I think clients seeing that, it gives them permission and it gives them a sense of possibility.
I mean, I think so much of this is identity work, right? Like, do you
Oh,
think they don't
yes.
give themselves permission because it's like, well, I'm a journalist.
Mhm.
Journalists don't own coffee shops,
Yep.
which, by the way, if you look at the history of coffee, they did. But,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
no, but I mean, it's like, I think we get so tied up into this like one little part of our story and this one little detail and piece of it, and we make it the whole story.
And we invent stories about, oh my God, what are the neighbors going to think? And you know what? A lot of the times they're not thinking about you.
No, they're
Yep.
thinking about what you're thinking about them. Like it's
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to do, I love this. If we ever like go to a cafe, I would love to do this with you, is like
Okay.
sit and watch people and make up stories about what they're talking about. Like I love being like, oh, I think they're on a first date. And it's like, yeah. And
Mhm.
it's like they
Mhm.
definitely met online or like whatever. Like,
Mhm.
and it's fun. It's fun
It's
to make up
fun.
stories.
It is. It really
But
is. And I love doing that.
yeah, and like if we're going to do it for other people, we might as well, if we're doing it for ourselves, we might as well write a positive story. We might as well write an energetic
Mhm.
story, right?
Yeah. And it's s- so much of this is also helping people to be their own best friends.
Oh, I love that.
And it's sort of like we all hear about you wouldn't talk to a friend the way that you talk to yourself. But a lot of times we do. And that can hold us back. And again, it goes back to what is the story that we are telling about ourselves right now?
Hmm.
And is that story true? And what else might be true?
Yeah.
And keep leaning into those types of questions, things start looking a little differently.
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, at what point when you're writing that story? So we have shifted now from we're reading the story that someone else gave us and we're enacting that story
Mhm.
to now we are writing our own story. Within writing that story, we have stopped worried about what our neighbor across the street thinks, right?
Mhm.
And you got to shift into living it. You got to live the story and you got to start.
Yes.
And I'm stealing this from you. Like when we were prepping for this, you said, like, you have to live your life to have stories to tell. And whether
Yes.
that's out on the hiking trail, which was the example that you gave, or, taking that first step and finding out how much does it cost to own a coffee store? Like you don't
Mhm.
have to have
Mhm.
the whole bite yet, but it's that transition from at a certain point,
Mm.
you got to say, hey, the story is pausing here because I got to write the next chapter. And writing the
Right.
next chapter is the
Mhm.
living.
It's I think some of it is we want that story to be perfect and so perfect that we don't do anything.
Yeah,
Right? We just sort of sit there and I get it. I can overanalyze with the best of them.
for sure.
And but at some point, I have to give you a perfect example. Both you and I run, and in the mornings, trying to get out and go for the run, and I can find any excuse to give myself another minute not to get out the door,
Oh, yeah.
right? But when you get out the door, you push start on your watch and you go, that's when the magic is.
Yeah.
That's when the magic happens. You see the fog sitting on the river, going out and having experiences is crucial to how we live our lives.
Yeah.
There's the famous Mary Oliver quote. I think it's instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, write about it.
Hmm.
and we have to go out and live our, go out and live, make mistakes, hopefully not get into dangerous situations that, might be life threatening, but go out and do things, do real things in the real world. And that helps you. If you're writing, it helps your writing.
Mhm.
It gives you confidence about being in difficult situations. And it's really, you know, again, such a confidence boost to be able to have experiences, maybe survive them, and have a good story to tell. I think
Yeah.
humans are storytelling machines, and we
How
love to,
it's how we've survived. It's how we've survived.
yeah,
And I think the other thing too about it is, like, there has to be friction. And we've talked about
yeah,
friction before, but there
yes,
has to be friction. Any good
mhm,
book, it's not like there's no friction, even in children's books, right? The hungry caterpillar ate and ate and ate, and then he had a tummy ache and went into the chrysalis and became a butterfly. Like,
mhm,
um,
yeah,
sorry, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read The Hungry Caterpillar, but even in the most simple children's books, there is friction and there's a point and a transformation. And you have to, I just was listening to someone, an older gentleman, talking about, if you want to make change in your life, you have to be in circulation. And what he was saying is, like, you got to
okay,
go out in the world, you got to network with different people, you
yeah,
have to be in circulation, which I love. But
and yeah,
being in circulation, being out in the world is going to cause friction.
mhm,
And if you have
mhm,
told yourself as the hero of your journey that you can handle anything, you can slay any dragon, you can do whatever it is, whatever your preferred genre is, you got a lightsaber or whatever,
yeah,
like, you're going to be able to handle it. And there's going to be benevolent forces along the way that are going to help you in your journey. It may not be easy, but and when you kind of think about it that way, I personally think it's, like, way more exciting, right? Like, do it for the plot. Let's see what
right,
happens here, right?
yeah,
I think the other thing too within this, and you brought up this point, so I'd like you to talk about it, is in this world where everything is flattening us, like AI is flattening us, like filters flatten us. And
mhm,
there's something about wanting sort of this homogenous experience, but at the same time, that's not going to move your story forward. So, like, what are your thoughts on that?
it's going back to friction. Without friction, there was no growth, right? And without friction, you don't have a good story. You know, Last week I went on that hike. It is a hike that I do every year in central New Jersey. And I could have easily, like the first year I did it, I could have easily bailed out on it because it rained the entire time. And I swear I was the only person in the park hiking out. And it would have been easy for me to sit at home in front of my computer and, you know, mess about on the internet. But going out and having that experience gave me edges. It
Mhm,
gave me stories. It gave me pause.
mhm,
I'm like, I'm the only person in this park. Hope nothing happens to me, you know? And I think that what that flattening is doing is it's causing us to have the same stories and the same experiences. And it becomes, we're not like everybody else. I'm not like you. You're not like me. But we can't allow AI, social media, what have you, to tell us what to do and what to experience and how to experience it. Because I think it's going to quote unquote keep us safe and, have flat stories. I think it will cause us to, like just go to the grocery store and come back and not have anything to talk about or
well, like, engaging with life,
yeah.
right? I mean, going to the grocery store can be such an awesome experience.
Mhm.
Like, when I travel abroad, I love going to grocery stores and I love
Right?
finding the US aisle. but even just like my local grocery store, I like seeing people there that I see, or I'm like picking up apples and I'm like, oh, have you tried this? And you can engage in life, like
Yes.
not
Yeah.
just like checking a box. And, I can't go more than 2 days without talking about Mount Everest, but like it's, it's this idea with social media of that script that's being handed to you. It's fine if you want to go to Mount Everest, but
Mhm.
people are doing it because they want the social media picture and they want
Mhm.
to be able to go back to their alumni club or whatever and say like I did this thing versus the personal growth and the personal narrative. And
Mhm.
I think like it's just really sad.
And here's the thing about the script doesn't always match up to what's happening. And the script may say one thing and life is going to say something completely different. And at that point, you have to go, okay, do I hold on to the script? Do I be so rigid to hold on to the script that, that I, become brittle and fall apart? Or do I rip up the script and go, okay, this is what's like. Let's roll with it. Let's see what happens.
I think it's interesting. And I don't know how true this is. I mean, it's like people our age talking about it, which is why I'm sort of like, no, I'm not sure. But there have been reports, I guess, of teenagers, young adults not dancing, not going out to parties, not doing things because they're worried about it being recorded, which I think is a legitimate concern. And again, in the prep for this podcast, I will say I would be unemployable if my college experience had been recorded. Like, and not like the worst things, but like it just
Mm-hmm.
it is like you said, it is flattening our
Yes.
experience because we are so worried. And again, I think it's a legitimate worry that like we're gonna put this experience out there and
Like you
there's
said,
gonna be 300 comments on it.
and be unemployable. Yeah.
And so it's difficult. And so I guess I'm not sure exactly where we're going with that, other than the fact that like you need to go out and have these experiences for yourself, not necessarily to document them,
Mhm.
not to, have a hashtag that you can claim. And I was joking. I was like, it's sort of like if a tree falls in the forest, does it actually make a sound? And it's like, yeah, you can take the trip and not post it and it still counts. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. You can do the run and not post it on Strava.
actually, that doesn't count. Sorry, none of your miles count. But I also think, like, I was just thinking about relationships, right? And like how we may say, like, this relationship, let's say a relationship ended and you ascribe all of this stuff to it. And like at
Mhm.
any point, you can go back and change that story. At any point, you can give meaning as you grow and age. Like, you don't have to hold on to all the stories that we tell ourselves either. Like, that edit, if we're going with this, like, sort of analogy, that editing process can happen at any time.
Or you don't need anybody's permission, and those stories become your stories,
Mm-hmm.
and you can own them. They can be part of you. Like, look, I'll give you a great example. I really started running after a breakup,
Mm-hmm.
and the woman I was dating at the time was a runner. And me being a guy went off and said, okay, I'm going to run a 5K just to spite her.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I know. I know. But the thing is, I ended up catching the running bug
Uh-huh.
independent of her.
Yeah.
And that story morphed into something completely different. It morphed into a story that really changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to experience things, and you've got to sometimes experience heartbreak.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do with that determines your next chapter.
Yeah.
You know, I love quotes.
Yeah.
Harry Edwards, who organized the protest at the 1968 Olympics, great guy. And he said the experiences in your life can either be baggage to put in your trunk or fuel to put in your gas tank.
Yeah.
The decision about what the story is belongs to you. That's something you have to keep in mind.
100%. I mean, it took a long time. And when I finally got it, I got it for
Mhm.
myself. And, I don't know if it was being raised Catholic or what, but it was like self-flagellation over mistakes that I had made. And even mistakes that I made deliberately. You know what I mean? Like we all do things that we regret doing. And I would spend years just
Mm.
feeling bad about it. And at a certain point, I was like, that's not honoring the experience. You can sit in this and feel bad about yourself, or you can learn and grow from it and make reparations or penance or whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
That's the penance. That's the karma, is choosing differently and forgiving yourself
Yeah.
and learning that lesson. And that
Mhm.
that took a really long time. And it's not eschewing accountability. I don't want to say that, but like it's one of those things where, like, again, I was creating a story in my head about I'm a bad person forever and always because I made this decision versus, hey, you made a real shit decision. What did you learn from it? And how can you make amends moving forward by what you learned versus just like sitting in it? Because then it's all about you. I think that like you get to define that story, you get to rewrite it, and you get to go back and edit at any point. Like
Mhm.
the narrator, sometimes we're an unreliable narrator, right? So,
Yeah, it's true.
which
It's true.
happens. And I think the other thing too is if you don't write the story, something or
Right.
someone else will.
And is that a road that you want to go down?
There was a quote, it was by Viola Davis, and she said, and you can help me with this, it's hell is meeting the version of yourself that did all the things that
And
you should have done on
uh,
your deathbed.
yeah, and
And I was like, oh,
that one hit hard.
yeah.
That one hit hard, and sometimes we give up too much of our agency to people, to things, to circumstances, and as you said a couple of times here, you can and need to be the hero of your own story.
Mhm.
And you don't need my permission, you don't need Megan's permission. You can do this. We'll help you. We'll
Yeah.
guide you along the way. We'll support you. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that you are the hero of your own story,
Yeah.
and don't give that up
Yeah.
as you go through life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the other thing that I will say as well in regards to that is all art builds on itself, right? So like the Greek mythology became Roman mythology, Shakespeare borrowed, we're still retelling it today, right? Because there is a shared human experience.
Right.
And that was like a very Western culture idealized version of it. But ultimately, like every culture has a sandwich, right? Again, I think it's one of these things where when you start to doubt yourself or start to feel like, well, who am I to say I can do this? Honestly, and I was an English major, go to the stories. Like, go read other stories throughout history. And it could be fiction or nonfiction. Like, learn from it, grow from it, and adapt what you want from it. But there is something in there that is a human story that you can apply to your life. You're going to
Yeah.
stumble, everybody stumbles.
Everybody
You're going to succeed,
stumbles.
everybody succeeds.
Yes.
Like, you
It,
get to play with the details.
and it's you bring up a great point where everything that you're facing right now, people have faced for eons and eons.
Yeah.
And you can go back to their stories to understand how they worked through it.
Yeah.
So in a cosmic way,
Mhm.
you're not alone, and
No.
you've never been alone.
Yeah, and there are certain stories that are tremendously unique, like our 4 friends up in space that are coming back. I mean, that's pretty unique. Like
Very.
Harriet
Mhm.
Tubman had the most insane life of anybody I've ever read. Like every time I learn something new about her, I'm like, Harriet,
And a a badass before the idea of badass ever came about.
sh
Yes.
like incredible, like just
Yeah.
incredible. And I think all of this gets back to something that we like talking about as well, and it's approaching with curiosity.
Yes. Mhm. I mean, take a look at our 4 astronaut friends who just circled the moon. Did, that mission, yes, it takes bravery and it takes curiosity too. What's on the other side of the moon that we as humans have never seen? What is it like spending 10 days in a ship? All right. That what is it going to be like? Who, how am I going to get along with these people? And instead of approaching it like, oh my God, I have to do this mission, it's you're approaching it as, okay, let's see what happens here. Let's see how the personalities mesh. Let's see how we get along with each other. Let's see if a container of Nutella just floats on by while we're in orbit. What those four folks have done is what we have always done as humans
Mhm.
is be curious and explore and see what's on that particular island or what's on the far side of the moon.
Right,
Always done that. That's innate with us.
right.
And no matter what our jobs are, no matter what our lives are like, we've always got that innate curiosity in us.
Anything else about telling our own stories, storytellings, narration, narrators, unreliable narrators?
You know, it goes back to what you said, and David Goggins has also said this as well. You are the hero of your own story.
Yeah,
We can see things happening on social media in our algorithms, but at the end of the day, we are the authors of our own stories. So you've got an opportunity to make it the best story that you can. And also, you don't have to write that story alone as well. You got friends, family, coaches who will help you write that story. So lean into that.
I think that's perfect. That's great. I didn't prep you for this question, but do you have a favorite story or a favorite book or movie or tale?
I was actually thinking about this, a few minutes ago. There's a book called "The Hero in the Blues" by Albert Murray, and he was a contemporary of Ralph Ellison, who wrote "Invisible Man" in Juneteenth, and he's got an essay in this book that talks about antagonistic cooperation, meaning you can't forge a sword without putting it into a hot fire. You can't be a championship boxer without a good sparring partner. You can't have a hero without a villain. And so these things serve to bring out the best in you. And so that's just something that I've always tried to lean into, that the situations that I sometimes find myself in, they could break me down or they could build me up. So the choice is mine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Wow. Off the top of your head, I didn't even prep you for that one. I love Star Wars and I like just as a concept, as a story, I love everything about it. And who knew George Lucas nailed it on empires would rise and fall off of trade deals and tax codes and shit like that, which is so funny. We all need to say sorry, George Lucas, for stories 1 through 3 and being upset
Yes.
about that. But love Star Wars. I love Lord of the Rings. I just think Tolkien just nailed it. And I mean, that was such a response for him to World War II and World War I. Like it was, I love that. But there's a book I read recently and within the last year called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Phenomenal book, but it's a coming of age book, really from college through middle age with a group of friends. And I would highly recommend if anybody's looking for a good piece of fiction, that's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's phenomenal. There's a chapter in that book related to death. I had to put the book down and not read it for a while because I've never read anything like that in the description. It was very positive. It was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe someone created this kind of art in the world. Like, no, it's really amazing. So, stories change us. They really do. And it could be fiction, nonfiction, it could be movies, whatever it is, your grandma's story of her growing up,
Yes.
and letting that change us in a positive way is a good thing.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
one more thing to add. do real things in the real world and help your storytelling out.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Megan. Always enjoy it.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.